So this is the last video of 3 parts where we're gonna turn the joystick and the new pixel matrix into a small kind of game. And we're gonna play a little bit around with some if cases in the code and just take a look at that. Okay, so this is how the game works. I made a blue dot up here that the red dot is supposed to catch. So when I move my joystick around here, I can catch the blue one, and that's going to put the blue one to a random position. And I didn't implement any counters or anything for this, just simple tracing game where you should catch it. You could build this into like how many can you catch in this many seconds or something. But that's totally up to you. I'm just going to show you the basics of how I got this working. Okay, so this is the code, and as always, I'm going to put it able to be downloaded in the links below. So the code here, what changed from the previous code is that I implemented this statement here, these statements right here. That's basically it, what I made for the code, to figure out if it actually has been caught and everything. So let's first of all talk a little bit about variables. So down here, for example, I'm having a variable that I am initializing as an integer, but I also have a lot of them up here in the top right now. So the ones that I have built are these ones. And the two most important one, I would say, maybe 3 most important ones that you're going to use is called the bool or boolean. And that's like a yes and no answer. So you can always, a boolean is either a 0 or a 1, and that is the lowest state that you can almost get for values. And then we have the integer, this one, and that has to be a whole number, so that can be like 1, 2, 3, 4, but it can't be any decimal numbers. So it cannot be like 1.1, that's impossible in an integer. Integers can also be negative numbers, so they can be like minus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But that's usually the most common state that we use. So for this one right here, I have the x and y bait position. So that's where the blue pixel is located. Then I have the positions of the joystick, and that is the true position, like within the 0 to 1023. And then we have the mapped values being the values from 0 to 4. So that's all my variables, and I put them up here all the way in the beginning as what we call a global variable. So that means that you can access this variable from anywhere in the code actually. So that's very important, because if you initialize a variable inside a function, for example here for the for loop that we have the integer in here, if I'm going to ask outside this for loop what the I value is here, right here, I'm not going to receive anything. It's going to tell me that I is not declared in this scope. And that's true because it's inside the function. And so a few places where it can be important is that sometimes people want to write like int bait in here, but if I do that out here when I'm actually displaying the LED that I want to do at the XY position at the bait X and Y, I can't see it because it's inside these brackets right here. So that's why it's important that they are global. And sometimes it's just an error you get, and it's a pretty easy fix. It often looks something like this. If I delete these part here and I try uploading, it will check the sketch and it's going to tell me that X bait was not declared in this scope. And that's simply because it's inside these brackets right here. So I'm just going to Control C out of this, and so that I get it back up to working state. So let's take a look at what I did here. So I took an if statement, and the if statement is going to be entered in this loop if the condition in here is true. So right now I just wrote caught, and it's so I didn't actually tell the if statement what it should compare to. But how I compare usually is I do two equal signs, and that's the difference between a single equal sign and a double equal sign. A double equal sign means that it's comparing, like I'm asking if it is so, and if I'm doing like a single one, I'm telling this is how it is. So I can do if catched equal true. This is basically the same thing as I did before, but this might make a little bit more sense to you guys. So I do if catched equals true, then go into this part right here. So these two lines are going to generate a random value from 0 to 4 and save it inside the name here. And these lines here just do simply that I want to write it to my serial monitor. What I want to write where the bait is at. So I just did this for debugging. And then I want to set the caught condition to false because I don't want it to generate a new random value until I actually caught up and to the location where the bait was at. So the next line here is LCDs, and we talked about this in the last video about how I can write to an XY position. So I'm putting it to the X bait position and the Y bait position, and I'm making it blue, and then I'm going to show it. And then down here I'm asking if the X bait is equal to the X map position and the Y bait is equal to the Y map position, aka the position of where the red marker is, I'm going to write to the serial monitor that the bait has been caught. And then I'm going to set this caught condition to true. So when I come all the way through the code here, this condition is now true, and it's going to generate a new random position for me. So now we're back to the code that we did beforehand. For the for loop for smoothing the position of the joystick, and this for making the actual average. And these parts here are the mapping functions, and this is where we display the red LED. So if I upload this now and I open up my serial monitor, we should see that it's going to write the Arduino booted and the bait is at 3.1, the 3.1 position. So it's here, number 0, 1, 2, 3, and 0, 1. So that's true. It's going to be right there. And if I now take the joystick and move it over, so I'm going to be on top of it, it's going to generate a new random position. So there might be a single flaw to this that you might want to consider. It is possible when I move on top of the LED over here that it actually could randomize to the same position where it's already at. Like that can happen, of course, being random. And if you had a counter for how many times I hit the blue one, like that could cause a miss number. So let's actually just build a counter. So what I'm going to do for that is I'm going to have an integer up here, and I'm called it count win, and I'm going to equal it to 0. So I'm going to start it at 0. And then inside this caught condition right here, I'm going to say that count win. So I can either do count win plus plus. This will do the same thing. It'll just increase by 1. Another way of doing it, if I want to have like 10 points every time I hit it, I do count win equal count win, so the previous condition, plus 10. So now I'm going to have 10 points every time. And then for displaying it, I'm going to do a serial dot print line. I'm just as print, and then do you have, and then I'm going to do a new one down here. And so I'm going to write like you have XX many points. Can win. And I'm going to do a space and points. Upload. So there it goes. Arduino is booted. And we're gonna hit it. Okay, so let's see what it did here. So it didn't do an enter. You have 10 points it wrote correctly. And then it did in the same line beta set. I don't want that. I want that to be in separate lines. And the way I'm going to do that is I just want to make sure that the points here is closed off with an ln on the print. And that's going to make sure that it does like a return key after it. So I'm uploading again. And there we go. 10 points, 20. Okay, so that was 110 points, 120. So you see, actually, I think it did it right there. It did it because, okay. So of course, also when I release this key, it's gonna jump back, and that's gonna cause it to actually go through some of these, and if I'm lucky, it will of course hit it. So that's all about speed and how it works and everything. I can do like, I have to stand on top of it for like 10 milliseconds before it actually is counting as a hit. So you can do that exactly how you want. So that was just like the basics on the random function. We talked a little bit about that. And we also talked about if statements. The next video is going to be about a different sensor. Take care.